final item on our agenda, apart from the pink paper, is the work programme. Now, we've had a really good discussion on this at the last session. I've tried to capture those ideas in the work programme that you've got in your papers this evening. Rosie has said to me, quite rightly, I think, that one of the things that isn't in that draft at the moment that does need to be in is we do need to have a few sessions to go back and look at the ongoing regeneration projects. I'm assuming it's the ongoing ones that you're interested in, and get the cabinet members and officers into this committee so that we can, if we have concerns, raise those concerns with them and talk to them about that. So that's not currently in there, so I would propose that we add that in.
Gav, I was going to say, I think you're missing the July meeting from your agenda, so you've gained a whole meeting.
Really? There isn't one, is there, Shelley?
Is there not? I thought there was one on the 13th of July. But I thought it's in your calendar.
I took the list. I took the list off the website, but we'll check on that.
I will double check. No, that's fine, don't I?
Office members enjoy these meetings so much they want extra meetings. You see, that's very good. No, so I propose to add that in to the work programme, so that will be slightly modified from what you've got in front of you. So I can, if it's okay with the committee, I will agree that wording with Rosie after this meeting, and then I'll open it up to the discussion. So, Anoush?
Well, just on the regen, I assume when you say ongoing, you mean Aylesbury and the elephant? Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Catherine?
Yeah, thank you. It's very comprehensive and reflects what we talked about. The only thing that struck me was IT systems we're not looking at until next May, and that was really popular with the staff, so I just wondered what the rationale for that was.
Yeah, just purely practical and fitting in other things, and ideally we'd do everything straight away. But I suppose partly with that issue, there's ongoing work happening at the moment, and so clearly we've seen some fairly big improvements in some areas recently, that members will be aware of. But I'm aware that there's other work that's going on. And I wanted to give that a chance to happen before we came back and scrutinised it. If there's any rationale behind the timing of it, that's it. I think it would be tricky to rejig the schedule because we'd have to drop something else back. That's all. Paul.
On the IT issue, it is an item proposed to go to the Audit and Governance Committee tomorrow evening to look at the governance procedures within the contract, the effectiveness of the scrutiny and evaluation of it. And so on. So I would hope, and I think that will be relatively early on in our agenda.
Good.
And I think we can certainly time that so as to inform the work that goes on in May that might be a bit more useful. But if there's anything that we felt should be brought up in advance that was about a process-driven element of it, then I think that could be incorporated into that review as well.
Good. This is the advantage of having a chair of audit and governance on this committee. No, that's absolutely right. Good. Okay. So, Anoush?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying to you in the break, Chair, I suppose one of my concerns, I can understand why you want to look at stuff that's sort of coming down from government, but I suppose my concern is just what we as councillors can do about lots of things, and actually it's our job as the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to be scrutinising the Cabinet and the Council. And so I don't know, I'm not convinced the right to buy stuff, actually, is there a huge amount we can do on it? I would rather we looked a bit more about how we're actually enforcing planning policy that already exists in Southwark. I think there is an issue there. We've had lots of debates, actually, I know it's a party political point, but the council doesn't enforce its affordable housing planning policy, and that seems to me an issue that at least should be covered if we're talking about housing there, plus empty homes, which we have had cross-party agreement on in Council Assembly, but yet nobody in the council seems to know how many empty homes there are. So I feel like if you want to talk about housing, it's right, it's the biggest issue certainly that comes to my advice surgery, but I'm not sure battling against a Tory policy that frankly they will do whatever happens. And we can make a big fuss, and I can see how it's helpful for the administration to spend time making a big fuss against the Tories, but actually I'm not sure it's going to benefit Southwark residents, and I'm not sure it's our job as scrutiny members to do it. So I do feel that. I also am concerned that there are some things that my understanding is come under the remit of this scrutiny committee, particularly around cycling and green spaces and the environment, and I'm just worried that we're losing things around, frankly, what we're doing to cut carbon and all that sort of stuff. So I'm really sorry I wasn't at the last meeting. The dates came fairly quickly and I just haven't got it in my diary, so apologies I wasn't here, but they are things that concern me, plus the regeneration. And if it's helpful, I did wonder whether in the September meeting we need to return to the age-friendly borough quite so quickly, given we've had quite a good session on it and it's down to come back to it in November again, so I thought that might help there.
Okay. All right. On whether or not we're doing work that is essentially going to be superfluous because it's focused on government, I think the challenge for this committee is we're not going to produce reports that have 10 recommendations, none of which the council can actually do anything about. If we start producing reports like that, I think that's fair comment. But we will not produce that kind of report. We'll be producing stuff government does has a massive impact on what the council does. So we don't want to produce reports that says, please government, don't do this to us, but we do want to produce reports that make sure we're prepared for what's going to happen, that make sure we know about what the impact is going to be. And I think as long as that's a test and we're constantly aware of that, and then I think it is about what this council is doing, and then it is about this committee holding the council to account for those decisions and for that preparedness. On rejigging the timetable a little bit on age-friendly, I think that's fair enough, so I'll go back and have another look at that, because some of the stuff we heard tonight might have an impact on that. So that'd be my response on that. I think on the green, clearly we've got a packed work programme already on the issues that we've looked at. So
I was going to say, we did a bit of work last year on green spaces and on cycling, and a number of the recommendations in the health of the borough report looked at the kind of the cycling, the spine, and put some recommendations to Mark, and looked at kind of putting in planting spaces, and Devon might be able to help me here, another thing on the green spaces, and we looked at, like using council properties to put in like planting pots and things like that, and green bits of the solid spine. So we did a bit of work around it.
I suppose my worry with the health subcommittee is that you've got health to worry about and the council's got more responsibilities for public health. I think the council's failing miserably on mental health, and I hope at the last meeting you said you were going to pick up on mental health. So I'm just worried, and certainly when the subcommittee's cycling used to be under a subcommittee and it was taken out a year ago, and we were assured that those sort of issues would be looked at.
There will be issues, because of course the list of subjects that you've got in the work programme isn't the only things that this committee is going to look at, because we're going to have cabinet member interviews, we're going to have the budget scrutiny as well, so there's a wider programme of work that sits around that. These are the kind of the specific issues that we're going to look at the moment. So, and yes,
just a couple of points. On the point Rebecca made, that report is in the last bundle of papers for the last meeting. So if you go back, you'll see all of that stuff that Rebecca's spoken in that bundle. Okay, that's that point. The point I did want to make is that we did say, Chair, that there'd be close connectivity around at least one inquiry between the subcommittees, and that is, as far as I know, on the issue of mental health. That was proposed by you, actually.
So what I was planning on doing, is when we were going to talk about work plans, the future and scrutiny, I thought what we should do, seeing as Jasmine sits on my committee, is that we look at the joint mental health strategy from a health perspective, and then pass our recommendations to Jasmine's committee to look at it from then a children's education perspective as well, so we can then write a joint report.
Good.
So it used to be used two committees working together to do it.
And you'll see in what in the work programme I put in that well, obviously one thing we didn't do so much of last year, and I think we need to do much more of this year, is linking up the work of the subcommittees of audit and governance, working together a little bit more on scrutiny, and doing a bit of that. So I'm going to go Jasmine and then Tom.
I've written I haven't written my work programme, so I've met yet, crikey. I'm very not off the same. I've done a draft of our work programme so we can kind of hit the ground running, which is what I think everyone else is doing. And I've circulated the ideas out to the committee. But one thing I was wondering, Rebecca, is if we might, we can discuss this after, whether it might be a good idea to factor in a sort of a joint, between the committees, so there's much more synergy rather than us doing it there and passing it on.
Yeah, we can figure it out.
That would be great.
Shelley, you're happy that we can merge meetings together? or put in an extra meeting or something for both committees together.
Yeah, because I think, and actually not everyone on the committee has to go to it, but I think, just a couple of people, which will help the synergy, I think. And likewise, between the education and the housing committee, Tom, I mean, we need to factor something in, but it's not something that I'd envisage that education committee would go off and do. I would like to do it, from the onset as a joint. Otherwise, it just eats into my work programme. So, better connectivity.
Tom?
On the empty homes, that's in our work programme for this year. That's closing next week at our committee. And in terms on the right to buy, the subcommittee can pick up a lot of the evidence gathering on that, joint with OSC, and we're proposing to do a huge amount of that outside of the meeting. As in invite members of both committees to interview prominent figures in the world of housing at times that suit them. We think we'll get better quality if we can come into that. But certainly from my perspective on that, the point of that would be for Southwark to come up with interesting and innovative ways of getting around some of what the government's saying. What constitutes a void, for example, was one of my questions on this.
Good.
So why does OSC need to do it?
Well, by working, if OSC and the subcommittee can work together, we can give it more time. There's more people involved actually doing the work, because as we all know, in producing a report of this sort and getting the right kind of recommendations, vast amount of work doesn't take place in the meetings, it takes place outside the meetings. So if we can get more people involved in that, I think that's a good idea. I think, I know you're not keen on it as something for us to look at. I think it's absolutely crucial that the government's proposed policy on right to buy for housing associations, because it potentially have a massive impact on the borough, massive impact on our ability to build homes, massive impact on us financially. And I think working together on something like that could be really important. It could add to the quality of the work that we do. Okay. Can we, with the caveats about adding in the stuff about... Oh, sorry. I apologise.
To be honest, it was more of a general question, actually.
Yeah,
and forgive me if this is more a question because I'm a newbie to the committee, so should know the answer, but don't. I think the kind of approach of having a couple of different sessions talking about a particular policy area or issue, culminating in a production of a report is a really good one. What's the process for actually producing the report? I mean, as you just said, it's a big piece of work in and of itself, physically writing it, kind of combining it, putting together everything that's been sort of flagged up. What's the process?
The process as a framework for it would be gathering information both in our sessions in the committee, as we've done this evening, going out, asking officers for information, putting in what are essentially members' inquiries, gathering that information, asking Shelley to gather some of that information as well, and Shelley's team doing a bit of research, so asking them that, getting ideas from committee members, and then for this committee I will draft something, and then often I share it before the meeting that we have, so I can check that people are kind of generally happy with the direction in which it's going, so that goes to the whole committee. Then eventually we get a draft. We have a meeting, we discuss that and make any changes that are discussed at the meeting, and then we have a final version, and then that goes to Cabinet. So I want to be as collegiate as possible, so I want as many people as possible to be involved. Ultimately, it does take one person to sit down at the computer and write these things out, but as long as everyone's always kept up to date and say, this is the stage we're at the moment, the report is going to be written by X date, send me your ideas now, then that's the best way of doing it, I think.
I was just wondering, and just an idea, I'll throw it out there, whether there's an opportunity to kind of add a stage to that process on a kind of case-by-case basis, if there's appetite to, for perhaps more of the work to come together and sort of flesh out some of the ideas and sort of whittle it down. And I appreciate you're right. Physically, one person has to sit at the keyboard and type up a report, but I think perhaps certainly if there's
You won't get any arguments from me on that, because usually the problem is there isn't the appetite to do that kind of thing. So if there is appetite and people want to get more involved in the actual writing and coming up with ideas, absolutely fine by me. So let's play it by ear on that. And as the issues come up, if there's something that you in particular want to get more involved in, just let me know and then we'll go from there. Good. Okay, so...
The diary questions
yeah, go ahead.
Cabinet.
Yeah.
Budget scrutiny of it. You've got to note that. I think it's from the 1st of February to the 2nd of February, which seems mad to be thinking that far ahead, but it's actually a really difficult meeting to organise.
Yeah.
If you want to make it a daytime meeting,
yes.
a lot of people need to put the time in.
Yes.
Are we proposing to do a day, like a half-day long session again?
Yeah, I thought the structure of it last year was good. Yeah, so like a half day, so people would probably need to take time off work and book that. So is the date changed for that, Shelley, or is it still?
So the 1st of February was the date that was allocated in the council calendar. I put it forward to the cabinet last week, and they were pointing out there's a few cabinet members who are not around on Monday daytimes.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what the issue was. So we were asking if we could shift it. So it's a question.
All right. Fine. So should we pencil it in for the not the 1st at the moment, for a different date, or?
Which was a show. A lot of people respond to me.
Yeah.
I can't quite gauge.
All right. Okay. So with those caveats and those proposed changes, are we okay to agree the work programme for the coming year?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Now we're not quite finished yet, are we? Because we need to have a quick discussion, I think, on the pink paper that we've got in our papers. But for the open part of the meeting, pink papers are confidential papers that are not publicly available, so we need to go into closed session in order to do that. So I'll call this part of the meeting to a close, and then we'll go into closed session.